Hi, everyone, and welcome to the last Super Monday of 2024. I'm Daniel Godley, a content marketing manager at Unity. Today, we'll be talking about mobile trends from 2024 and our predictions for next year. With me are three of the most qualified people you could talk to about mobile games. Igor Bereslavski, VP of Revenue at Supersonic, Guy Agiv, Director of Product Design at Supersonic, and Samantha Benjamin, Director of Growth at Supersonic. In just the last year, this team, with a whole lot of help from the rest of the Supersonic Dream Team, published hits like Trash Tycoon, Pick Me Up, and Park Match, generated 5.7 billion downloads with over 196 million monthly active users, and invested a huge amount into the tech, R&D, and platforms to make the product relevant for hybrid games. In parallel, we launched our Top Creatives Library and the powerful Game Idea Generator. In this end-of-year wrap-up, we'll be covering the current state of the market, the top trends of last year, the impact of increasing hybridization, and of course, predictions for 2025. To close, we'll jump into a live Q&A to answer your questions. Please remember to write your questions in the Q&A field or the chat field so we can get to them at the end of the session. Let's get right into it. Okay, Igor, first question's for you. 2024 was an important year for mobile games. It's the year when a lot of macro factors culminated, like the global economy, regulations, and tech innovations. What is the current state of the market?
So I think we have still more competition. We see decrease in downloads in the gaming industry, and in general, we see that it's much more difficult to launch new game from scratch compared to what we saw 2 or 3 years ago. If we eliminate the inflation of the past year, so we see that the gaming industry is pretty flat in the past year.
Okay, and what are some of the emerging trends we're seeing as a result of the state of the market?
So, as I said, we started to see it in 2023 after the post-IDFA era, the recession, and all the other macroeconomics changes. We see the rise of the CPIs. Became much more expensive to acquire new users. And we see that the payback time became longer than it used to be. So if we used to pay back in the hyper casual in 7 days, 30 days, now after that we moved to 60, and now we see even 180 and even longer time paybacks. And the cohorts looks very different from the soft launch stage compared to the stage of scaling a game. All these things puts in a very high risk the game developers that want to publish new game. So we see that many of the games focusing on existing users that are already acquired and trying to maximize their LTV and to squeeze the lemon from them. We see a lot of them putting most of their time on live ops event and increasing the revenue from this stream. And we see re-engagement channels and re-engagement activities that are trying to bring already the users that they know, and they know the behavior of these users back to the game. Another thing that we see is adding more revenue layers. So we see games that are pure casual that monetize only within a purchase, adding more ad monetization layer, and the opposite, more ad-based games that are trying to build more hybrid game approach and combine with ads the in-app purchase revenue. We mainly see it on the hybrid casual genre. If we look on the hyper, we see decline in downloads year over year, but we see an increase of almost 30% on the hybrid genre of revenue per user in the past year. And I think that we are about to cross the 2 billion revenue from hybrid channel in 2024.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, my next question is for Guy. So how has game design reacted to these changes in the market?
So while the UA expenses has significantly increased, we had to look for ways to increase the LTV, the lifetime value of the users as well. When it comes to hyper casual, playtime is the king. We can see a strict correlation between playing time and the revenue, but the ceiling is, I would say, pretty low. When it comes to hybrid, we need to look for different monetization approaches and encourage the users for watching rewarded video or even IP. And in this case, the sky is the limit. We do look for ways to create some pressure points over the users. It's also something that has changed dramatically. Back then in Hyper, we wanted the user to play over and over, while in this case, we kind of limit his resources, his balance, his moves in the game in order to put enough pressure for the users to keep playing the game, but not churning from the game.
Okay, let's talk about this a little deeper in practical terms. What does this mean for studios when they're planning out their difficulty curves and pressure points?
So it means to think about both monetization and difficulty curve from day one. It means that they need to know exactly where will be the fail flow or the fail condition for the user. And of course, it means that they need to run a lot of A/B tests in order to improve it and get to the optimum point of the game.
Awesome, thank you for that. And so for Sam, how has this affected the game development process, particularly Supersonic's approach to the game development process?
Okay, so I think that the game development process fundamentally changed from hyper casual games to hybrid casual games. And one of the main things, like Guy mentioned, is we need to think about monetization from the very, very early prototype stage of the game in order to build a game that is good enough to be monetized from in-app purchases. I think that besides for like in hyper casual, you could build a game and only afterwards start thinking about how to add the monetization layers. In hybrid, you really need to do it from the beginning. And another key thing that we're looking at is the retention KPIs, right? Like also Guy said, basically playtime in hyper casual is the king. In hybrid casual, we think retention is even more important than playtime. And the retention expectations we have, for example, on day 7 are double what we used to have in hyper casual games. And in order to build this retention, you need to have like a very good and engaging core gameplay that keeps stickiness, keeps users coming back. And that's what allows us to, build this higher LTV that we're expecting to see. The game development process is longer, right, than what we used to have in hyper casual, and it takes us more time and a much, much more sophisticated team and studio in order to build a hybrid game. Whereas in hyper, you could have one developer that builds the game from the beginning until the full launch and global scale. In hybrid casual, you need to have game economy to think about the process of like balancing the currencies in the game. You need to have like a lot of content, deeper content, more complex mechanics. So you really need like a team in order to build a hybrid game as opposed to 1 or 2 developers. And yeah, so from the game development perspective, these are the main changes.
Awesome. So we know that creating LTV or high LTV over a long time means you need deeper content. Let's talk about how you can create deeper content in your games. This one's for Guy.
So the basic model, I would say, is to add more layers of enemies or obstacles or challenges to the game. The common one, I would say, is to add layers of like meta layer, collectibles, limited time events. But I think that the secret sauce is to think about how to create this complexity or depth in the core gameplay. It means that we try to combine mechanics, maybe to start with one mechanic, for example, a decision-making game, and then after a few levels, few days, it combines with another mechanic like idle or even tycoon games.
Okay, awesome. So what are these new kind of benchmarks, more focus on retention mean for monetization?
Okay, so for monetization, I think that the monetization strategy when we're thinking about these deeper games, these hybrid games, is very different. Like I said, in hyper casual, our main focus was playtime, right? We were trying to create the longest experience possible to be able to sell the commercial space. In Supersonic, we even created a KPI called APPU, which is average playtime per user. And this used to show you the potential of the LTV of the game even before you had monetization. And in hybrid casual or deeper games, I think that the mindset is different. We are trying to cap the playtime of the users. We are trying to create what we're calling pressure points, where we are creating this engaging experience where the users are playing and they're having this hype and they just really want to continue having fun, but you're stopping them. And at that point, if they want to keep playing, they will either decide to make a purchase with real money or they will engage with a rewarded ad offer. And that's how they're able to continue enjoying this great content and this great game we created. So the monetization needs to be really well balanced. And I think in hybrid casual, what we see is that there is some sort of like perfect synergy between IAA and IAP. We are able to monetize both pretty heavily, sometimes 50-50 split, let's say, between the two, without cannibalizing each other. A very cool thing that we see in deeper games monetization is, in hybrid specifically, is that they're still able to monetize from interstitials, which is the more aggressive ad unit. And they're even using it some kind of like a point to convert users, the first time depositors. They are seeing these commercials of interstitials. And if they want to have the premium experience, then they need to make a purchase in order to continue playing, free of these commercial breaks that are not really wanted by the players. And this helps us actually increase the number of depositors we have in the game. And it only shows how, IAAs actually can sometimes help you even grow your IAP monetization if done in the right way. If you're thinking about rewarded ads, for example, then the way that we are doing it in hybrid games is that we create this premium experience that you can get, like the resources, the boosters, and so on, by watching a rewarded ad. And some of the players will decide later on to become payers because they had the taste of what it is, this VIP experience, and they don't want to be watching commercials anymore. So yeah, so I think that also the main change is that we are less reliant on interstitials in this type of games, in deeper games, in high retention games. We are more reliant on rewarded ads and IAP revenue. And that's also what allows us to sustain this high retention and not to damage it through having to monetize through commercials. And
Awesome, thank you. So Igor, this one's
Yeah.
for you. In this new ecosystem of monetization, what is the role of ad monetization?
So I think ad monetization is still one of the main pillars in the revenue strategy of hybrid games. If we look on the last most successful hybrid games that were launched in 2024, we still see in the best scenarios ratio between 50-50 between ads and in-app purchase. Of course, you need to build the right, as Sam said, the right strategy for ad monetization without cannibalization between the ads and the in-app purchase. But I think that definitely 2025 ads will be one of the most dominated revenue stream in the hybrid casual genre.
Awesome, thank you. Do you think purely in-app ad-based games will still be able to monetize effectively in 2025?
I think it depends on the game. I think that for deeper games, casual RPG, they might they still we see the results. So they're still monetizing with mainly in a purchase, but definitely I'm pretty sure that if they will try to add some layers of in the right places of ad monetization, it's something that will bring them incremental revenue stream.
Awesome.
I can just add to that,
For sure.
like pure IAA games, if we think about it, that's the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're still pretty successful. We are seeing games that are over the 500K daily revenue run rate on one game alone, purely from in-app advertising. And basically, we think that this trend is going to continue and it will be something that works also in 2025. We don't think that IAA pure is done. We just think that there is a big shift, and it's something that the way you build a pure IAA game before needs to be sophisticated and adapted to a higher LTV market, which is what we need to generate because of the higher CPIs. And in order to build this higher LTV, you could also do it from IAA, but you need to have a game that has better retention, more content, and has the user, is able to keep the user and sustain the revenue pace for a much, much longer period of time. So there is a change in the way you're building the game, but it could still be purely monetized through ads. And that's not a limitation at all in our perspective.
Awesome. And thank you for that perfect segue into my last question, which is again for Igor. What can developers and studios do to succeed in this market?
So I think three main things. First, still look on marketability. So we don't say today we must to have a low CPI below 50 cents or 40 cents. It's not that. But still, if we look when we build the game should have comparable low CPI to the genre of the game and comparable to the more casual games. The second is you need to still look on your time to market. You need to understand that hybrid casual games need faster implementation of the game and building of the game. So if we look on time between ideation to the global release, it should be between 6 to 10 months maximum, not to stick with with the game for longer time, because it doesn't it might not pay off eventually compared to casual games that their strategy is building games for a few years even and betting on only on one game. For hybrid developers, you need to stick with the market trends, to see the marketability, to understand that there is audience for such game by low CPIs or by the genre itself that is creating more and more games, and then building on the game based on that. And I think that another thing that the development of a hybrid genre should stick to one subgenre. So because it's not only easy hyper game development, to build a hybrid game, you need more layers, you need more economic strategy, you need more monetization strategy, you need to define your core strategy, then you need to add more layers. So it's not easy to build several subgenre games. So find your subgenre that you're really good into and stick to this subgenre.
Awesome, thank you. So with that, we're going to jump into our predictions for 2025. Igor, I'm going to keep it on you for a second. I'm going to keep you in the hot seat. What trends do you expect to see in 2025?
So I expect to see that more and more the live ops activity and the optimization of existing users is going to grow in this genre to squeeze the lemon from these users. I believe that we see it already in 2024, but we see that platforms like HTML5 games are growing and booming. We see it in China on platforms like WeChat or Douyin, TikTok, and it's very easy implementing, and it's another revenue stream for the games. So I believe that more and more games will add another game on the HTML5 platforms.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, this one's for you, Guy. What genres do you expect to rise to the top next year?
So it's hard to predict, but if we're taking what we have at the moment, first of all, puzzle, it's always like the easy choose. Of course, it's hard to say what will be the best subgenre in puzzles. At the moment, we see very popular gem puzzles and sword puzzle. We believe that it's going to to stay in the next period, but we guess that every developer that has the ability to go for puzzle games, it's one thing. Also, idle simulation are always popular. So stick to the most popular ones, and we don't know exactly to predict, but we have some kind of assessment about a tower defense game that might be also a good option for developers during next year. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will. Okay, so last question. This one is going to Sam. How is UA going to adapt to the challenges it's seen this year in the next year?
Okay, so I think UA is always sort of adapting to challenges and changing with the constantly changing market. If there is one constant in UA, it's change. And we are probably going to see in 2025 more and more around the privacy of sandbox regulations. I think that the main word for UA on 2025 is diversification. We're going to probably see more and more advertisers exploring different types of channels, from CTV, UGC, to influencer campaigns, and trying to make sure that they're making the most out of all of the channels that they can possibly explore. And I think that AI and automations is also some big expectations for 2025 on the UA world. As you know, in the UA, most of the things are automated, from campaign optimizers to ROI predictions and so on. And I think that with the change that we experienced, having more focus on profitability, having this cost efficiency of automations is something that is going to grow even further in 2025, and it makes a lot of sense with the creative and user acquisition world. And also hybrid approach to these models of automations for ROAS and so on, to have a full funnel picture of your ROI. So for partners, we have the UA partners to optimize not only towards only IAA or only IAP, but to be able to optimize towards this combined and full picture of your LTV, because we are seeing more and more games, not only hybrid, are approaching this, hybridized monetization model. And I think that in 2025, we'll see even more campaign automations around the hybrid monetization.
Awesome. I'm going to also extend this to Igor. Anything you'd like to add about UA trends in the next year?
So I think that it's very important in the hybrid world that the product side of the game that builds the game will understand what the UA is doing. Okay? I think it's something that usually in most of the companies, the UA side and the product side, they don't speak with each other. They don't know exactly what one is doing, and suddenly you see some changes in the game, and you can't understand if it's the UA, if it's the product. And I think this collaboration between these two sides should increase in 2025, especially when you think on hybrid games, because it's still games that based on high volume, rely on a lot of UA marketability. On the other end, it's rely on the very strong product and the additional layers of live ops. So I think that these teams and this side should work in better collaboration for products that want to succeed in 2025.
Awesome. Thank you, Igor. I just want to remind our attendees, please pop your questions in the Q&A and chat field. We'll be going to the live Q&A soon. Okay, on that note, I do want to ask one more question. We've talked a little bit about how development process for hybrid casual has run longer than hyper casual, going up to even a year in development time. But we've also seen a lot of new tools coming into the market, AI tools, etc. Do we think that the development time for these hybrid casual games will shrink with these new tools, or is this going to still be a while away? Sam, I'm going to send it to you first.
I'm the AI expert. So I think the hope and the answer we want to the hope and the answer we want to give is yes. We hope that it will become more efficient with AI, that we're going to have a faster development process, even faster than what we have already now. We use already a lot of AI in our world in gaming, especially creatives, but also in coding, of course. I think it will be even more efficient in terms of like ideation of types of games you want to do and understanding the industry trends with low efforts. But in terms of the actual development of the game, I think that hybrid casual is sort of like a supersonic speed development for a casual or closest to casual that it can be within 6 to 10 months of working in a game. If you think about it, casual companies, they can work in, in a game before soft launching it for like years. And the fact that we are able to do something that is really, really good and can be monetized for many, many years ahead within 6 to 10 months of development, it's already very, very impressive, in my opinion. So I think the answer is, I hope so, that it will be better, but I think that the machine needs to learn more and we need to like be able to give it time for it to perfect itself in the world of like game development. And 6 to 10 months, I feel like it's already very fast. So maybe.
I believe one of the best success that we can gain from this, from AI in game development is the ability to customize, I would say, the difficulty curve to the user. It will allow us to create the right difficulty curve per user according to the user behavior. Also in level-based games to generate new levels, new elements within the game, everything automatically. We know that once the users like your game, they can play hundreds and thousands of levels, and sometimes most times they are faster than the developer. So it will help us to generate good levels very fast, hopefully, but time will tell.
Time will tell. Igor, you want to add anything?
The guy already summarized everything.
Awesome. I agree. They had a lot to say and good stuff too. Okay, we're going to jump into the live Q&A, guys. So about 10 seconds, please pop in your last few questions and we'll get started. Okay. So my first question I'm going to ask the group here.
Yeah.
What types of gameplay mechanics are currently driving player retention and engagement?
Player retention, especially late retention, we see that puzzle works the best if you manage to find the right mechanic. Players can play for days, and when we look on late retention, probably those are the games with the best day 30 and above.
Awesome. Now, my next question, how important is integrating social features in mobile games? And what are the best examples of this, if you have any in mind?
I would say super important.
Yeah.
Okay, super important.
Once you fight for users, adding social layers to the game can gain organic installs. That would be the best or the treasure that you can find in the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it helps quite a lot with UA or the organic side of UA. It also helps with the competition feeling in a game. If you know you're playing versus someone that you act like, if you know they're real friends playing against you, and it makes the game more fun in my perspective. And there's like a lot of games we see out there that are very much based on social elements. I won't start mentioning names, but we see it's pretty successful. So if you have the opportunity of doing it, I highly recommend so. And also it makes it easier for us to keep a track of the user's behavior, right? Because they log in with something and then you can understand who they are much better and actually design the experience of the game maybe a little bit different depending on the segments and users.
Awesome. So to summarize, super important. Okay, the next audience question, are there any new monetization strategies gaining traction besides traditional in-app purchases and ads?
Well, we see, I wouldn't say getting traction, but we see like audio being something that was a very explorative, audio ads, like radio ads sort of, being something that was very explorative this year, and maybe to be even a little bit more next year. It's I think that's like a newish trend, but we don't see like yet having a very strong success. And
Offer wall,
yeah, it's not new.
It's not new, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
ads, but the offer wall definitely is very, very good for
Any-
IAP-oriented games.
Awesome. Okay. Igor, anything you'd like
Yeah,
to add?
no, that from this perspective, no, but as I mentioned, so I think that another streams like HTML5 games, it should be revenue generators in 2025.
Okay, awesome. So jumping into the next audience question, are there new KPIs or metrics that developers should focus on to attract publishers? And part two to this questions, and what metrics are considered strong for global launch hybrid games in 2025?
I don't think like from my perspective, it's not a new KPI, but the main KPI you should be focusing on for Supersonic is retention.
Yeah, we all agree.
It's like our expectations and benchmark to receive, like to actually put our teams to work on a game are much higher and more strict than they used to be for hyper casual. And we want to see, like, even before we put in a lot of effort and people in a game, we want to see good early day retention indication. So I think that's like the main KPI I would recommend looking into.
Yeah, I think if you want to attract publishers, I believe that day 7 retention, high day 7 retention, at least 2 digits, I don't know, 12, 15, 18, this is the minimum that you must have in order to initiate the process.
So you just answered my next question before you even had a chance to ask it. Okay. Next audience question. Several games are clones of Legends of Slime and Capybara Go or other idle systems or idle games. How can you differentiate yourself if you want to also get into this genre?
This is the secret, I can't tell you. No, I think that what I think the best way to take from it is, like, we don't expect anyone to invent something. Like, it doesn't have to be from scratch. You can definitely go for takeoffs for Capybara or other games. Take one element. It can be related to the core mechanic. It can be related to the theme sometime, or with another layer to think about how to combine maybe another mechanic with those games. But one strong element would be enough. What will be this element? I can't tell, but that's what they need to look for.
Okay, this is the secret sauce we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. So next audience question. Casual players are expensive to acquire versus hyper casual. How can a game attract casual players? I'm assuming the question is more cheaply.
Yeah, so I think that the secret of hybrid casual game to attract casual users is the marketability, as good creatives. It's very important to invest in creative influencers or other channels, and the ability to innovate in the creative field. That will allow basically to tell story for casual players. This game is fit for them, and we see several successes in that. Maybe use some mini games as a video in some mini games of your hybrid game as a video that will attract more casual audience, and by that lowering obviously the CPIs for such users and increasing your paying users in the game.
Awesome. So a slightly different question, but also about a different kind of genre here. Are Web3 games a trend, and do you think there'll be a thing in the future?
It's I think that the Web3 games is a trend for the past 2 years already. Something that everyone talks about it. It was in a high peak when with the NFTs, and then it went down. Now it's increasing again, mainly maybe in channels like Telegram, which is super popular at the moment. So I can't say that it's something that it's a new trend. It's a trend that we see. We follow this trend. I think it's related to a specific platform that can support Web3, but I'm not going to bet that it's going to be the biggest change or the money maker of the game industry for next year.
So fair bet.
Yeah.
Okay. Are Supersonic employing some sophisticated monetization segmentations for players? We have some examples here. Things like funneling players coming from IAP and UA campaigns into configs with less or no ads to promote purchases, dynamically changing ad frequency, cooldown rewards, etc., depending on player behavior, and employing an RFM, recency, frequency, and monetary system for ads. Thank you for breaking it down. I appreciate the detail.
Detailed. I think I'll answer it a bit less detailed, but I'll say that definitely we're looking into all the segmentation options. The easiest and the most classic option is to understand when you're bringing users from a very expensive campaign, right, on the user acquisition side, to be able to give them a longer gracer period to become paying users, to segment them from the get-go, because you know that they are high potential payers. And you know, segmentation is, I think, unlimited when it comes to, you know, casual or hybrid games, and it's something that we are always like trying to maximize. So the answer, the basic generic answer is yes, certainly we're looking at segmentations and trying to make sure we have the most sophisticated user journey for the different types of segments.
Awesome. Okay. What are your thoughts on making a standard hyper-casual puzzle game versus a hybrid casual game?
Hyper casual game?
A hyper-casual puzzle game. Sorry, let me rephrase. I must have misunderstood. What are your thoughts on turning a standard hyper-casual puzzle game into a hybrid casual puzzle game?
That would be the best, I would say. Like, if you have a strong and simple core mechanic for puzzle game, hyper puzzle game, it's just about adding complexity and other layers to the game. If you can crack it and find a way to do so, that would be perfect, because when it comes to hybrid casual, we still need to maintain the simple core loop of the gameplay. And if you have it from hyper casual games, perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so we're getting into our last few audience questions here. With hyper casual games, it's easy to scrap a soft launch product and work on something new. But with hybrid casual games, the longer development time makes it difficult. When should you decide to scrap a hybrid casual game compared to hyper casual?
I had something else in mind, but please repeat the question.
Okay, let me rephrase it slightly. I think the question is, what should you be looking at, and when should you decide that it's time to scrap an idea and start again when you're looking at hybrid casual?
So we're tracking the metrics, like in the end, Sam mentioned it several times about the retention, like we start and feel the game and play the game and see how the user behavior. If we believe that the retention won't be able to last for long, probably we will stop the process and start all over again.
I can also add to that basically in hybrid casual, we are also like, there's a few stages or milestones, let's say, to how we are looking and testing games and understanding if there's really potential or not. And one very, very important stage, like we said before, monetization is really key for this type of games, is we are checking the monetization potential in very early stages to understand that, you know, the game can actually be monetized, because there are great games that actually generate high retention, but they don't really manage to succeed on how to create that monetization layer and get users to convert and to pay and to, you know, be very active and payers, let's say. So I think in Supersonic, we also understood that this is something we should check, and we're doing some like early stage soft launch where we're acquiring users, understanding how they are monetized, how well they be, like how good the LTV potential can be, early LTV, of course. And sometimes even when you get to this stage, you might decide that, you know, it's time to stop it and shift to a different type of a game or idea, because you could really be stuck with a good retention game, but no monetization. So it's important to make sure you're balancing between both.
I will add to that we need to understand that on the first stages when we build the game, and the metrics look totally different from what we see on the launch. So the metrics should be extremely good when we work at the initial stage of the game. And if after the work and we added all the core mechanics that we wanted, and we still we don't see solid, very promising retention KPIs and monetization KPIs, this is, I think, the stage that we need to pause to work on the game, because sometimes people work on the game and then they think that they will go to global launch, will add live ops layers, and this is what will get them to succeed with the game. But we see that most of these projects that don't have core good games are eventually fails on the scale element.
Okay, great. Okay, last two questions here. With AI getting better, sorry, I need to just decode this for a second. So I'm going to jump to the next question and come back to this one.
I was asking on that question.
Exactly. Would adding new play mechanics further in the game be successful for monetization, or should we stick with the same mechanics and add new features instead?
As I said earlier, I wouldn't look for too many new stuff. We have great examples out there. Just pick the classic one that fit to your game, and that should be enough as I see it. I don't want to be a party pooper, but I really think that if something works, you should use it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I think I've gotten to the bottom of what this question is trying to ask. With AI improving and now 3D graphics being more accessible to more people, should developers be focusing on 3D, or is 2D still a good kind of graphic style for creatives?
I think it's hard to tell. Like there are some games which are classic. There are some markets
2D.
that we see very popular 2D. We see it, for example, lately in Vietnam market, super popular to stick to the 2D. In others, 3D is the most popular. So it's hard to tell. It depends on your games. And if you do something good, so do it. If you do great 2D, stick to 2D. If you do great 3D, stick to 3D. But as long as you do it great, it won't really matter.
Okay, you heard it here first. If it was great, then you should stick to it. If not, then maybe swap. Okay, guys, I think that's all the time we have for our audience questions. So that's a wrap on our last Super Monday of 2024. Huge thanks to Guy, Igor, and Sam for coming through and being with us today. As you start to think of your next hit, we hope that you keep these tips and trends in mind. For more insights and to stay on top of our latest updates, don't forget to follow us on our socials on Instagram and LinkedIn, and check out our website. We'll see everyone at the first Super Monday of 2025. Happy holidays and hope you have a great new year.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.